Imagine a king of England, the emperor of India, ruler over a quarter of the world's population, giving it all up. Not for political principle, not due to war or revolution, but for love. This isn't a fairy tale. It's the story of the royal scandal that brought the British monarchy to its knees and almost shattered the crown forever. This is the story of King Edward VIII and the woman he couldn't live without, Wallis Simpson. To understand why this was such a cataclysmic event, we have to travel back to 1936. The world was a very different place. The British Empire was still a global superpower, and the monarch was not just a figurehead, but the head of the Church of England and a symbol of moral rectitude for millions. In January of that year, King George V died, and his eldest son David ascended to the throne as King Edward VIII. He was handsome, charismatic, and immensely popular. He was the modern monarch the people had been waiting for, a breath of fresh air after the stern formality of his father's reign. The public adored him. They saw him as the future, a king who understood the common person. But what they didn't know was that their new king had a secret that would soon explode into the biggest constitutional crisis in modern British history. That secret had a name, Wallis Simpson. Who was she? To the British establishment, she was everything a future queen should not be. She was American, not British. She was a commoner, not of noble blood. And most scandalously of all, she was a divorcee. In fact, when she and Edward began their relationship, she was still married to her second husband, Ernest Simpson. By the time Edward became king, she was in the process of her second divorce. For the King of England, the head of the Church of England, a church that did not recognize divorce, to marry a twice-divorced woman was simply unthinkable. It was a moral and constitutional impossibility. The government, the church, and the royal family were all in horrified agreement. This could not happen. The British press, in a remarkable act of self-censorship, agreed to a gentleman's agreement not to report on the king's affair. So while the rest of the world, particularly the American press, was splashing photos and stories of Edward and Wallis across their front pages, the British public remained blissfully unaware. They saw their king on tours and at official events, but the woman constantly by his side was a mystery. They had no idea that behind the palace walls, a titanic struggle was unfolding. The Prime Minister, Stanley Baldwin, was clear with the king. The government would not support the marriage. The people would not accept Wallis Simpson as their queen. Baldwin presented Edward with 3 options. 1. Give up Wallis. 2. Marry her against the government's advice, which would force the entire cabinet to resign and trigger a massive political crisis. Or 3. The unthinkable, abdicate the throne. For Edward, there was no choice. He was deeply, obsessively in love. He told the Prime Minister, "I intend to marry Mrs. Simpson as soon as she is free to marry." If the government opposed the marriage, as the Prime Minister had given me reason to think it would, then I was prepared to go. His mind was made up. He would not give up Wallis. The crown, the empire, the duty he was born to, none of it mattered more than her. This decision sent shockwaves through the establishment. His own family, including his mother Queen Mary and his younger brother Bertie, the future King George VI, were devastated. They pleaded with him, they reasoned with him, but his devotion to Wallis was absolute. The crisis finally broke to the British public in early December 1936. The dam of silence burst, and newspapers were suddenly filled with the shocking truth. The nation was thrown into turmoil. Some supported the king's right to marry for love, shouting "God save the king" from Baldwin in the streets. But many more were appalled. They felt betrayed. The king was choosing personal happiness over his sacred duty to the nation. The symbol of their empire was about to abandon them. On the evening of December 11, 1936, after a reign of just 326 days, the shortest of any British monarch, Edward VIII addressed the nation and the world in a historic radio broadcast. His voice, calm but filled with emotion, crackled across the airwaves. He announced his final and irrevocable decision to abdicate. He explained in words that would become legendary, "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do, without the help and support of the woman I love." With that, he was no longer king. The crown passed immediately to his shy, stammering younger brother, who had never expected or wanted to be king. He would become King George VI, the father of the late Queen Elizabeth II. The aftermath was immediate and severe. Edward, now styled the Duke of Windsor, went into exile, marrying Wallis Simpson in France the following year. Not a single member of the royal family attended the wedding. The new King George VI, in a move to protect the monarchy's image, denied Wallis the title of Her Royal Highness, a slight that would sting the couple for the rest of their lives. The Windsors became international socialites, but they were effectively ostracized from the family and the country they had left behind. Their reputation was further tarnished during World War II when they visited Nazi Germany and met with Adolf Hitler, leading to accusations of being Nazi sympathizers, a stain that never truly washed away. So how did this scandal change the crown forever? First, it thrust an unprepared man onto the throne. George VI had to overcome a severe speech impediment and his own insecurities to become the steady, reliable leader his country desperately needed during the dark days of World War II. He and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, earned the respect and love of the people by staying in London during the Blitz, becoming powerful symbols of British resilience. Second, the abdication redefined the role of the monarch. Edward VIII's choice highlighted the conflict between personal desire and public duty. His abdication reinforced the idea that the monarch's life is not their own. It belongs to the nation. Duty must always come first. This became the defining principle of his niece, Queen Elizabeth II's record-breaking reign. Her lifelong, unwavering commitment to service was, in many ways, a direct response to the crisis caused by her uncle. She understood that the survival of the monarchy depended on rebuilding the trust that Edward had broken. The scandal also modernized the monarchy's relationship with the media. The gentleman's agreement of silence was the last of its kind. After the abdication, the royal family entered a new era where their lives would be under constant, relentless public scrutiny. The mystique was shattered, replaced by an insatiable public appetite for every detail of their lives. The story of Edward and Wallis is more than just a dramatic royal soap opera. It's a pivotal moment in history that forced a re-evaluation of what the monarchy stands for. It's a tale of love versus duty, of personal happiness versus a nation's stability. While Edward chose love, his brother and niece chose duty, and in doing so, they saved the institution that he so nearly destroyed. The modern British monarchy, with its emphasis on service and its complex relationship with the public, was forged in the fire of this one extraordinary royal scandal. Thank you so much for watching. It's a fascinating piece of history, isn't it? If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was Edward right to choose love, or should he have put his duty first? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.